go to a marriage with my wife will tend to notice all the saris, all the dresses everybody is wearing. I would not even notice that. Okay. So women tend to notice a lot more. Even at work, they tend to notice who is silent, who is contributing, who is unhappy, who is happy, etc. They have a fantastic, wide angle lens in terms of seeing what's happening around them. That's a big advantage. Never lose that. This is what we call perspective. I think women have a very good perspective. Next slide, please. And how does this compare with men's perspective? So women's attention, and this is something that Marshall Goldsmith has said, is more like, operates like a radar. A radar scans in a 360-degree manner and maps what's happening everywhere around within a particular distance. Whilst men's attention operates like a laser. Okay, men is more like telescope. It just focuses on one thing and that's it. Women is much more radar. In today's world, especially, when there are so many things interconnected in society, it's just not about business, it's just not about profit, it's just not about growth. There are so many interlinked issues, and hence the radar that women have is far more effective. In 1960, the average go back, please. Yeah, this one. Stay. No. Go back, Pradeep. Yeah. In 1960, the average company reported maybe 4 numbers to the stock market. Today, an average company is held accountable for 55 to 60. So when you think of 55 to 60, you have a wide sweep of society from where you really need to get better. So I think women are better placed to actually do this well. Next slide, please. On your way up, you must define for yourself what success means. Remember, success is a deeply personal thing, and I do talk about it in my book, The Right Choice, Resolving 10 Career Dilemmas. You have to define what it means to you. You have to define what it means to either move up in an organization or an institution. For example, I maintain that careers or success is like many flights in the air. There are some flights which will fly at 30,000 feet, some at 40,000 feet, some at 50,000 feet, some at 60,000 feet. Now, all of them are successful. Remember that. All of them have achieved sufficient speed. All of them have achieved sufficient height, etc. You have to be clear what is that you are aiming for. And when you are clear that you are aiming for a 40,000 feet altitude as a success marker or a career marker, then it will come with it some hardships, some opportunities, some challenges. And you have to recognize that. You cannot fly at 40,000 feet and then say, you know what, I want the benefits of 20,000 feet where there is lesser pressure, lesser temperature and things like that. That doesn't work. So please define what success means to you and then address the issues which come as a result of that success. Next slide, please. The definition of progress is always personal. Remember, my progress is personal, Pradeep's progress is personal, Rajdeep's progress is personal. And one of the biggest impediments is also personal and individual, which is being blind to behaviors. Many times we are a product of what we've grown up with. Our behaviors are a product of that. We have encouraging parents, we tend to talk a lot. We do not have encouraging society, we tend to keep quiet. We have an encouraging boss, we tend to do a lot more. We have a discouraging boss, then we only do what's required of us, etc. The point I want to make is if you constantly don't change your behaviors, okay, then you will not achieve success. The reason being the context changes regularly. As the context changes regularly, your behavior also must change in line with that context for you to be truly successful. Next slide, please. The thing which women face more than men at the workplace, which I have seen, that behaviors are well within our control, but it's external forces, the unconscious biases, okay, are things that you will never know. For example, a bunch of people might decide, you know what, I don't think she can do this job because it's an operations job. I don't think she can do this job because it's a traveling job. I don't think she can do this job because this will involve her staying back at work after 6 p.m., etc. These are all unconscious biases in a man's mind, okay, or in society's mind. So we have to constantly be aware of that. And in all the companies I ran to, we had many unconscious biases. Like in PepsiCo, people would say women get, rated worse than men, or women have lesser salary than men. I said, that's not true. Let's put the facts together. And when we put the facts together, women consistently scored better ratings than men in the 4 years I was there. And women had the same salary, if not higher salary in PepsiCo India compared to men. We are one of the few companies in PepsiCo of its 60, 70 subsidiaries, we could actually say we were an equal pay master. So many times these unconscious biases need to be countered with facts. And we used to have a red zone, a green zone, and a yellow zone in terms of posting women into sales or wherever. But I always believe that you must give the choice to the woman. If the woman is happy working in a red zone, then that's fine. If the woman is happy working in a yellow zone, that's fine. It's up to her. Even in my current organization, there are many women who come and say, we will do the night shift in a plant. These are maintenance people, these are plant managers, etc. They are signing up for night shift. We have a bias as men that women should not do night shifts. So I don't think there is anything called a man's job or a woman's job. I think both are fungible. And I think women are by and large more successful in each of these jobs as much as men can be. Next slide, please. The way we define success is very different. Women define success differently from men. Women don't place value on money or position. Men place value on the money they earn, the position they have, general manager, vice president, senior vice president, chairman, etc., the car they have, the watch they wear, things like that. So they're very position led. Okay. Whereas women tend to place a very high value on the quality of their lives and the quality of their relationships. So in that sense, women are much better rounded. They have the softer aspect in them compared to men who tend to have a linear or a unidimensional way of looking at what matters to them. Next slide, please. When women do well, a lot of people tend to criticize them as being too ambitious and too focused outside of home, which is completely wrong. The same can be said of men, is my point of view to you. So do not, if you're a high profile woman, if you have achieved something, do not be worried if somebody says you're too ambitious. There's nothing wrong. When it comes to ambition, what I would tell both men and women is that don't wear ambition nakedly on your sleeve. If you wear ambition nakedly on your sleeve to say, hey, no, I'm ambitious, I want to get ahead, etc., people will pull you down. Your ambition must first be linked to your team. If you're ambitious for your team and you're contributing to the success of the team, your own success and ambition will be met. On the other hand, if you say, I want to be ambitious, it doesn't matter if the team wins or not, then a lot of people will pull you down. So be careful of this. Ambition is good, but naked ambition is bad because people will pull you down. Next, if you want to get ahead, one of the things you need to recognize is that in meetings, in communication, etc., do not start your sentences with maybe, but, however. That's a bad thing for a woman in communication, because most people will want a positive way in which the same thing is said. So watch your language in meetings, watch your language when you're responding, whether it's on a webinar, whether it's in a conference, whether it's in a meeting, whether it's in a speech. Try and avoid what I call the maybes, buts, and howevers. See if you can add and things like that, which are much better in conveying the spirit of what you're trying to do. Okay, so this is what I would say. Watch for this, because this is one of the things that people talk about women. Next slide, please. This is a lovely thing which Ted Jenkins of Intel said. She said there are 4 types of power: power of expertise, power of connections, okay, power of personal authority or charisma, and power of position. So if you look at this, the thing which women have a lot of is 1, 3, and 4. And the thing which women are a little shy about is number 2, which is power of connections. I would seriously input into you to say, build an external network. There is nothing wrong in using the network, okay, when it matters, when it can come to your advantage. I'm on LinkedIn. I cannot tell you the number of women who reach out to say, hey, you know what? I have this dilemma. I'm planning to look at this job in this company. Do you know anybody in that company you can introduce me to? There's nothing wrong in it. Okay. What can I say? I can say yes or no, right? So, but that's okay. As long as you're willing to accept the fact that, okay, somebody will do his or her best, and if they can help you, fantastic. Women have power of expertise. There's no doubt about that. Look at some of the women who've reached the highest levels of any discipline. Women have the power of personal authority or charisma. They're outstanding. And women have the power of position. Okay, so all of them are there. And women have to use their power of connections. You have a lot of connections in your life. You have a lot of connections in your career, but please do use them and use them positively. Next slide, please. As I've mentioned, women should leverage their personal connections a lot more. Don't be shy about it. I know there are times when women can get unnecessary attention if they're reaching out for help or to people. That's fair enough. I do understand that. But by and large, I would say that there will be people who will be willing to help you and ensure that you move forward. Next slide, please. So some of the differences I have seen in my career, this is what I've seen at a board level, at very senior management level. If I was thinking when I was putting this presentation of, if I looked at my management team of 2010 and I looked at my management team of 2016, what did the average management team member who was a male display, and what did the average female colleague, okay, who was part of the board display? So I just took 4 alphabets, A, B, C, D. If I look at my average male colleague, he would have been aggressive. If I looked at my average female colleague, she would have been assertive. And they're two very different words. Assertion is much more positive. Aggression is a little negative. In terms of B, I think the average male colleague which I had was brash. I think the average female colleague is brave. Why was she brave? She was brave enough to put her emotions at the table. She was brave enough to put her frailties at the table. She was brave enough to say, I don't know. Men don't tend to do that. C, my average male colleague on my board would either confront or challenge. I think most of the women who I led as a management team would collaborate and would actually be comforting. If something went wrong, they would be people who would be comforting, definitely not my male colleagues. And finally, if I look at D, my average male colleague would be very demanding, and my average female colleague would be very dedicated. So now you ask yourself, if you're a leader anywhere in the world, what would you choose? I have no doubt that I would choose the right-hand side, because the right-hand side is rich on social skills, is rich on emotion, is rich on loyalty, is rich on truth, and it's rich on speaking truth to power. Okay, and that is something that I've always valued in all the women that I worked at. And I really wish that there were more women in senior management. And there are, enabling regulations like having one woman on the board of every company. India has 5,500 listed companies. Okay, so there is opportunity for straight 5,500 women to be, inducted into the directorship roles. There's a lot of opportunity out there, ladies. Please ensure that you do your very best and move forward. Next slide, please. So in summary, I started by saying I have put together thoughts of what I have seen. I've taken empirical data from various books, from Sheryl Sandberg, Marshall Goldsmith, Michelle Obama, Melinda Gates, etc. Then I talked about the facts. The 360-degree feedback shows that women tend to be better than men in leadership. Research shows that women use 20,000 words. My point to you was, don't overplay your strength, know how to use it well. Women tend to display more personal loyalty and team loyalty compared to anybody else. One of women's greatest strengths is the way they observe, the amount of detail they're able to pull through. In that sense, women's perspective is much more like a radar, and a men's perspective is much more like a laser. Okay, you must define what success is to you. Okay, whether it's 30,000 feet, 40,000 feet, 50,000 feet, you must decide that. And the associated pressure, the associated temperature with that height will come with it. And you need to know how to handle that. The definition of progress is always personal. And I think behaviors play a very important role in actually achieving that. Behaviors are in our control, unconscious biases are not. The only way to treat unconscious biases is to put facts at the table and really, debate it. Women define success very differently from men. Men tend to define it in material terms, money, car, watch, etc., and title. Women are much more about the quality of their lives and the quality of relationships. High-profile women tend to be seen as being too ambitious, no different from men. So do not ever worry about that as you go up the ladder. Be a little, smart in the use of maybe, but. However, they should never be seen as a negative slant compared to what other people are saying. Ted Jenkins of Intel said that the four powers are expertise, connections, personal authority, and position. Max Weber said this many years ago, that there's formal power and informal power. I personally believe that women tend to have more informal power or soft power compared to men. Women should leverage their personal connections a lot more than what they do today. You should reach out. Remember, if you reach out and ask for help, some people might, be the wrong type of guys or people, but most people, it's their choice to say yes or no and do whatever they can to help you. That's what I've tried to do throughout my career, to help women do better in whatever they're doing. And that's been my contribution. And as I said right at the beginning, I have led women with 40% on the board or on the management team. Very few CEOs in this country can claim that in the last 20 years. Maybe Mr. KV Kamath can claim that, but very few people can claim that. And I'm extremely proud of that. And I learned a lot from all the women who are my colleagues. Thank you. We're well within time, Pradeep.
Is the share screen off now?
Yeah, I can see you now, Pradeep.
Okay. Thank you so much, Shiv. It was a fabulous presentation. I think all the women who are logged on would have really gained, but as a man, I can tell you, I also gained a lot. And having worked with you, I can very well say what Shiv was saying. We really felt the difference. As a CEO, he encouraged everyone, and especially the women. And yes, I think it has been a great session, Shiv. Do we have time? I think we have time for Q&A. So I would encourage people to just put in their questions on the chat, and we will take them one by one. And we are already getting some responses. Very good point shared, very insightful. Wonderful session. So all these comments are coming. Please put in your questions as well.
So Pradeep, the questions are there
in the chat above. Okay.
In the Q&A.
Yes, I've got that. The first question is from Neelam Batra from VMware. How can we get things done without being demanding?
No, I see. That's a great question. Thank you, Neelam. The first thing about getting anything done is, why do we want it done? I think you need to explain that to people. So Pradeep, for example, when we worked together, why did we do so many media meets by going to their offices, etc., between you and me? We spent the first 6 months doing so much of that. Why? Because we were very clear that we wanted to build the reputation of PepsiCo to a new level. And once we were all aligned, you, me, etc., then we went and did that. We did so many in-house sessions. So I think you need to define why you want something done. Once you define what's the reason you're doing it and what's the benefit that you'll get as a result of doing that, then I think people will tend to be aligned a lot better. Otherwise, it will be seen as a personal agenda, and that's the worst thing to happen. Women's club, there's nothing wrong in it. I think women need to support each other a lot more. I think that's important. Here's my submission to you. Never try to be a man in a man's world. That's the mistake a number of women make. Okay, never do that. Okay, always play to your strengths and do what's right. And I think both men and women today, if you look at it, there are right now 148 million women or more studying right now. If even 1/4 of them come into the workforce in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, the number of women in the workforce will multiply, will dramatically change.